We have risen from the ashes to school the masses. Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the Scholars of Wrestling Show, episode 226. I am your man behind the microphone, Scholar Jeff. To my right is the current reigning and defending Scholars of Wrestling champion, Scholar Tarek. Scholar Tarek, what's up tonight, sir?
Normally, I would correct you and do the long title of being the Scholars of Wrestling champion. But considering how this week of wrestling went, it just left me as an empty shell of what I normally am. So, and yeah, this is going to be a very interesting show for me. Just because when I look at this past week in wrestling, it just makes me look in the mirror and just question everything. Question how I look at myself.
Oh yeah, this one was it has its highs, it has its lows, and we're going to cover it all on this week's episode of Scholars of Wrestling. But before we go any further, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the big Saudi Arabia show that was. We're talking about WWE Crown Jewel. Before we get into it, overall, what was your impressions of this one compared to the Greatest Royal Rumble? Because I noticed that right out of the gate, for me personally, this show had a lot more going for it than, at least initially, than Greatest Royal Rumble did.
My immediate thought for Crown Jewel is just complete waste of time. This whole event, the whole event in general, I'm just watching it. I'm just like, okay, this is the perfect example of nothing more than a glorified house show. When compared to Evolution, which I could see them really adding it on to the pay-per-view rundown for next year. Like once a year, we have an all-women's pay-per-view, and it's revolutionary. You look at Crown Jewel, and it's just once it's over, you look at it and like, wow, that was a complete waste of time for everyone. And it was, most people look at it as like, oh, this show is just nothing more than WWE trolling its audience, trolling people like us, trolling people like at Wrestle Talk, What Culture, Cultaholics, Pro Wrestling Insider, everybody. All the people who make shows for a living talking about wrestling, that this show was the perfect example of WWE saying, yeah, we look at you guys and just see like
Dollar signs.
Your opinions mean nothing. We can just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and you'll just look at it and just be like, is this all really worth it?
Well, let's not just skip on to the end and how we felt after that. Let's take our listeners for the ride. Because for me, when I first started watching this show, initially, right out of the gate, I had a much different vibe from this. When I was watching Greatest Royal Rumble, all I could see were the higher ups in the big fancy chairs in the front row who didn't seem to be paying attention to the matches, and way in the back were the actual Saudi Arabian fans who were getting really excited about the show and were genuinely happy to be there. Fast forward to Crown Jewel, it seems like those types of fans were everywhere. Even the Saudi rich guys, I don't even know who you would call them, at least they brought their kids to the front row. So they were enjoying the show. It seemed like it was loaded top to bottom with fans, just full stop. Sure, there were some Saudi officials who were just, doing their usual thing, but it seemed overall like the vibe was so much better. Like the fans who really wanted to be there, those who lived in Saudi Arabia and genuinely wanted to see a really good wrestling show, the ones who were really, really excited to be there, it seems like there were a lot more of those types of fans. And it seemed like it really brought up the vibe, and it just seemed like a much happier experience for so many other people involved. And so that right away just hit me as, okay, you know what? I can get into this. Because no matter where you are in the world, I love seeing an enthusiastic crowd.
I think that's the only real positive thing you can say about this show.
Yeah.
The crowd was into it, and I'm glad they had a good time.
Yeah, and it seemed like, okay, maybe they're going to learn from the experience and put on a better show. So right out of the gate, I was starting to feel it. I was a little lukewarm right at the beginning, but after I saw that crowd and started feeling the vibe, I'm like, okay, let's see what you got, WWE. Let's see where this goes. Unfortunately, that didn't lead to the first match, the pre-show match, Shinsuke Nakamura defeating Rusev, as I think we all called. Unfortunately, I missed this one due to my schedule for the day. Again, this came on at noon our time in the States on the East Coast. So, unfortunately, I had to miss this one. Tarek, did you catch this one?
I did catch this one, and really, it was a pretty straightforward match. These two work well together. And the only real unique thing that came out of it was how it ended, where it looked like Shinsuke was doing like a slide to get behind Rusev, and what looked at first looked like a little inadvertent low blow with Shinsuke's head hitting Rusev's crown jewels. Shinsuke goes to the corner and does that awesome smirk of his, knowing, oh yeah, no, it's what he was planning. And we should have known better when it comes to Shinsuke and hitting men in the balls. And he's finding out new ways to do that. And that's how he was able to claim the victory over Rusev. And then that was it. Now for Survivor Series, we got Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura.
Which I'm super psyched about.
Yeah, that's when in the long run you look at it and just like, oh shit, yeah, we're really going to get this match. Wow. All right. Well, Survivor Series is starting to build up, looking quite nicely.
So this is a good thing right out of the gate. And then we got the opening rounds of the Best in the World Cup.
The
tournament.
WWE World Cup tournament to determine the best in the world. That's the full length. That's the full length title.
All right. Do we want to go over the entirety of this right here and now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Might as well, because
okay.
The first round matches were short and straightforward. That's the best you can really describe them. There were nothing fantastic. They were generic as can be. And then you get to the quarterfinals, which with The Miz and Rey Mysterio and Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins. Those were actually the better matches of the night, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong there. They brought it down. No pun intended.
Especially Ziggler and Rollins. Miz and Rey Mysterio had a couple of botches, but it was just a couple of slips, mainly on the pin attempts. On both guys, actually. Those are the only botches. Rey trying to do a flip roll-up, lost grip of the Miz. Just turned out to be an ugly pin attempt. And the final pin, when Rey tried to do a frog splash, Miz lifted up his knees and tried to roll him up, missed his leg, so now he just simply rolled him up into a normal pin, and that's what got him. Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler, they've been having fantastic matches so far in the later side of 2018, so no surprise there. And the fact that the finals were originally supposed to be Dolph Ziggler and The Miz, that was something different.
Surprising.
It was two heels facing each other. I know most people were just like, "Are you kidding me with this? Really? This is the final?"
No one saw it coming.
No one saw it coming. And I'm a huge fan of both of these guys, so I was really looking forward to it.
As was I.
And then I had to step away from watching Crown Jewel. And I read the results online saying Shane McMahon won, and I'm just thinking, wait, what the hell did I miss?
I stepped out around the same time. Like, okay, they're going to be wrestling for a while. They're probably going to have a good, long, exciting match. I come back from doing something in another room, and all of a sudden, Shane McMahon's in the ring. I'm like, wait, what? What did I just miss? What's going on? And then it goes on to win. I'm like, are you kidding me? What? How? Why? That's when it really started to hit me like, okay, maybe this is just a glorified house show that Tarek said it was going to be, which honestly, quite frankly, I didn't want to believe. I try to be an optimist whenever possible and say, okay, well, maybe he'll still deliver some satisfaction. Maybe he'll still deliver some good matches. And then it was at this point where I was like, oh.
I had no after finding the results, I obviously went back and watched it, and my immediate response was, okay, that happened. That was this whole tournament. Even though the whole tournament was a complete waste of time, and other than just getting a stupid trophy, they weren't getting any title shots from this. No one gets anything significant out of this. So the fact that Vince McMahon, and from what I've read, this was the plan all along. This result was supposed to happen from the very beginning. So, as I put it earlier, it's just WWE trolling us, laughing at our faces. At that point, I'm just going, I can't be mad at this, but this is just the dumbest thing I have ever seen. It was to the point where I'm just going, I'm laughing because I'm just going, wow, this is so stupid. What? Do I really want to keep watching this? Do I really want to just keep watching wrestling in general? Am I reaching that point where WWE is just beyond saving?
And you know what?
At least under Vince McMahon's rule.
And you know what? When it came to this, the matches were getting so good towards the end of it that I was like, you know what? Okay, maybe this is my enthusiasm was actually getting up more than when we first started. Like, okay, I was expecting that this was going to go somewhere. That okay, we're getting some good matches. Maybe this could all end up way better than we think it is going to be. We had supposedly we had a main event that we didn't see coming with two of the most underrated talents in the company. So maybe they'll surprise us all and turn it up and bring the house down. And then Shane McMahon happened.
It's like, and we know how close Miz and Dolph Ziggler are behind the scenes. They're part of their own like group of friends backstage. So we all knew that they were actually going to work wonders together, and they have worked wonders together in the past. So I was looking forward to seeing what they were going to do. I was looking forward to seeing who was going to be the one to actually benefit from this tournament. And Brian was probably one out of the three of us looking forward to this one, because if Miz would have won, he would have been put in the title match at Survivor Series.
But he did.
And then Shane McMahon happened and completely tossed it out the window. Sorry, Brian. You almost had your chance.
Oh, boy. Yeah, this... Again, the one thing that's keeping me interested is that they are going to have some sort of big, worthy payoff to this. Because to me, I can tolerate dumb moves like this if the payoff is there. I even heard someone with like an absolute insane idea that because they're dropping all these best in the world monikers, that this would be a vehicle for CM Punk to return. But then they announced just earlier today that he was actually going to be an announcer for some sort of streaming service for UFC. So
yeah, I read that too. I kind of laughed. I was like,
okay, that kills that idea.
Not even just, I knew that, I heard that idea too, and just the thought of it made me burst out laughing, because as much as I would love CM Punk to come back, it's not happening, at least not anytime soon. Like, anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I read reports going on that this may have been just a catalyst to turn Shane heel. But from how things went on SmackDown, I guess they're kind of tossing that out the window of things he said. Or if anything, they'll just wait if he does actually turn heel. But all in all, just you look at this tournament in the long run and just think, what was the point? And then you just came to the realization there was no point in this. There wasn't anything beneficial happening here, other than just simply to begin promoting the builds for Survivor Series with the whole returning Raw versus SmackDown angle, which they weren't even planning on doing to begin with until Roman Reigns had to leave with the leukemia.
So here's a scholar's quick talk for you. What would you do? What's the first idea that comes to mind? What would you do with a heel Shane McMahon? Doesn't have to be the best or fleshed out idea. One of the first thoughts that comes in your head. What would you do with a heel Shane McMahon?
To be perfectly honest, I don't know. And fairly, I don't care.
I only have one idea, and I want to know what your honest opinion is of it. Put him against Becky Lynch. Because right now, Becky is super over. Sure, they're sort of playing around with her, but her momentum is just so good that if they're going to do another heel authority versus tweener, babyface, whatever, then I can't help but be curious to see what today's Becky Lynch would do in that kind of environment, especially against a guy.
I'd go for it. Especially now that they're actually dropping the whole, oh, she's not a good person. She ditched her best friend Charlotte. They're dropping this. They're just basically acknowledging that, yeah, she is a badass. And even she's proving it even more with her promos against Ronda Rousey, which is another one I'm kind of looking forward to.
That is going to be a fun one.
Although I kind of have my own feeling on how that match is going to end, but we'll save that for next week.
Yes, the prediction show is on the horizon, but first, we got to get through this one. Which, continuing on down the rest of the card, speaking of some brain bleach, we got the Bar defeating the New Day.
As much you would think I would be ecstatic with this one, but when it comes to the Bar and New Day and their history of matches, this was honestly one of their weakest.
It was just that way.
It just was mainly it was just straightforward. They just did normal stuff. They didn't really, at least in my opinion, I feel like they didn't really do anything extravagant, stuff that I know the New Day and the Bar are fully capable of. They just went there. It's like, okay, just kill some time.
Yeah, this one seemed very paint by numbers, unfortunately. It wasn't bad, but it was far from each team's best work. It was a show for the Saudi fans.
We know they're capable of so much more.
Absolutely.
But it's just one of those, once again, I'm going to say it was a glorified house show match.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this same feeling seemed to extend to the next match on the card. AJ Styles defeating Samoa Joe. This just seemed like, again, there was nothing new or different about it, it seemed. It
was short. That was the only real shocking thing about it, how short it was.
Yeah, it didn't have the same feel or vibe that this kind of blood feud really should have at this point. So it just seemed like someone just hit the pause button on this feud, and it's like, oh, the last match they had never happened. It's just, these guys still hate each other. It's titles on the line.
Oh, Daniel Bryan doesn't want to work the show? Just throw Joe in. Just throw Joe in. Do stuff we know. Just do the by numbers match. And that's it. It was just a straightforward, clean, AJ Styles won clean. And now we get Brock Lesnar and AJ Styles for Survivor Series 2.
Once again, chicken salad, chicken shit. I get it. It's, at least there's some silver lining to this. But I have to admit, I do need your help finding a silver lining on this next match. Brock Lesnar defeating Braun Strowman to become the Universal Champion again. Now, I get the point. This being a glorified house show, something to entertain the Saudi Arabian fans. I get it. But did you have to do my man Braun Strowman dirty like this? Now this was a squash. Know there was interference and all, but this whole thing just was really, really, really unsatisfying.
With the reports coming in recently with Braun Strowman getting some heat backstage for either coming in late, showing up late for work, or leaving work early and being basically his own worst enemy. You could see why they did this, and now it looks like they're just really completely downgrading him from being potential new face of the company to now starting a feud with Baron Corbin. And
I get it.
It's really a shame. It's really hard for Braun to really bounce back from this. I mean, this is his sixth Universal title match that he's lost. So it's Roman Reigns winning the Universal title all over again. We're reaching that point. It's like, all right, well, the glorious moment that Braun could have had is completely out the window. So when he finally does get it, it's like, oh well, it's kind of too late. Should have given it to him when he was just flying through the stars. When his momentum was at its peak. Now it is just, and now he's getting downgraded to having a blood feud with Baron Corbin, and it just hurt. And now with Brock Lesnar winning the Universal title again and showing up whenever, well, he's showing up this coming Monday for for the build for Survivor Series, but who knows when he's going to come back after that. And it's basically back to square one. And Seth Rollins said it best. It's like, it took away everything Roman built, and to the extent all that we went through seeing them basically have Roman get his crowning moment in winning the Universal title. And it's just like, oh, he has leukemia? Well, that's completely wasted. That was like, okay, all that was just so they can put the title back on Lesnar instead of giving it on a guy who actually would benefit with this crowning moment for him, and building a new top babyface to fill in Roman's spot until he comes back. Nope, we don't get that at all.
It should have. I've heard these reports. That to me is just a very dumb reason to pass up free money and a chance to make a whole new big baby face. It just feels like a holding pattern. I do not want to see Brock with the title anymore. I don't want to see Brock anymore. I want to see a whole new set of faces and a whole new set of scenarios. And now, just because someone's got a problem with when Braun is coming and going, that it just doesn't seem like a strong enough excuse not to elevate him as a star and asset to your company. I do not agree with it. I do not agree with it. And now we, the fans, have to pay for it, which is a big old crock of horsey BS. I don't even know what that means.
We don't have to know what that means.
Well, if only the WWE understood. But anyway, which brings us to our finale of Crown Jewel. D-Generation X defeating the Brothers of Destruction. I have no words.
I think Shawn Michaels said it best to Triple H after their match. We're too old for this.
Oh, yeah. It seems painfully obvious that everyone involved try as they might, as talented as though they might be, this was just all four of these men were just in it for the payday, which I'm sure it was very, very substantial, more than both of us will see in one shot in our lifetimes. But even so, I have to ask the question, was it worth it?
Doesn't look like it. To the point where Sean was just basically was like, "Yep, I'm not wrestling again."
As well, he shouldn't. He should have never come out. I'm not going to get on my soapbox again, but I felt right from the start that he should never come out of retirement for it. I'm sure it was an absolutely absurd amount of money, but which, good for him if you're getting fairly compensated and your family's in better shape than before. But at the same time, it's from a fan's perspective, from what I wanted to see, I wanted his legacy, all these guys' legacies, to remain untarnished and uninterrupted. None of these guys should have come out of retirement. Shawn Michaels should have stayed retired. Undertaker should have stayed retired when he had one of the most beautiful send-offs in wrestling that I've ever seen. Kane should have stuck to his guns and taken care of business in Knox County, Tennessee, and enjoyed his relatively good health. And Triple H should have done what he's been doing a fantastic job at and not have to worry about a pectoral tear.
Mm-hmm. So much for his match with Batista at WrestleMania. That match is out the window
and
now.
We lost that too. So I hope you're happy, Saudi Arabia.
Hey, bring Batista back in some form, because after that promo, I want to see Batista back.
I just want Josh Brolin to show up and snap his fingers, and he just loses.
Aww.
Too soon?
No.
Seriously, if they want to do something at WrestleMania, just have Josh Brolin come in as a special guest, and it's like, "Hi, Dave." Just do something with him. That'd be hilarious.
Now it's just the question of what they will have him do.
I don't know. Just drop a Thanos joke and I'll be happy.
Don't save it for next year. Don't try and save a Triple H Batista match for next year. I think this match should have just been proof that as much as Triple H still wants to just keep going in the ring, and good for him on wanting to, but yeah, his body is just like, no, we can't do this anymore, man.
Know your limits.
Mm-hmm.
There's a substantial amount of wisdom to that. Undertaker even said it years and years ago. I want to hang up the boots before people start looking at me like, "Oh, you should have seen him when." Well,
I think it's come
Taker,
to that point.
It's at that point. Please hang it up, ride off into the sunset with dignity, and enjoy the rest of your life. Please. And that goes for everyone. So that's all I really care to say. And after all that, Saudi Arabia, Crown Jewel ended on not a bang, but with a whimper. So that being said, final facial hair ratings overall for WWE Crown Jewel.
Looking back on this one, I said it earlier, it was just a complete waste of time. Nothing big came out of this, and it doesn't develop any storylines in the future. Even, like I said, Shane McMahon winning the World Cup, could it possibly lead to a heel turn? Who knows? It doesn't look like it right now, because he's just saying he wasn't doing it to be the best in the world. He was just doing it so SmackDown can win. So Stephanie wouldn't win. That could be billed for Survivor Series, but it's a very thin connection. Braun losing so he can feud with Baron Corbin. Brock Lesnar winning so we don't see the Universal title anytime soon. This whole show was just nothing more than a complete waste of time. It was one of my worst. It was my worst prediction for 2018. It was just one of the worst shows so far that in recent memory for me since Backlash. Because remember, so I'm going to give it a clean shaven 1. It really this show didn't do anything for me, and then the ending just basically was just like, Yep, you just killed any type of momentum that you could have possibly built.
For me personally, I was very dissatisfied with the way this show went, especially towards the end. However, because of the good points, I'm going to be slightly kinder to this. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5, a peach fuzz. Just because not just because of the matches, when they delivered good, and the crowd was better than than they have been for the Greatest Royal Rumble once again. So I'm inclined to give this higher marks than I would have, but as far as everything else, it was just enough to get by, but it was not satisfying at all. It's like going to McDonald's for lunch. Sure, nice start, but after that, all you feel is empty and just sick.
Interesting connections, but all right.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go. All right, I got nothing for that.
Yeah, try a Big Mac. Let me know how you feel in an hour after.
I don't like Big Macs, so pass.
And that makes you all the wiser for it. So anyway, this leads us to the rest of the week, which I only caught bits and pieces of. Raw and Smackdown this week. I understand you got a thought or two about that.
Pretty much, it's just the thought of building up to Survivor Series. When I look at both shows, I'm just gonna flat out and say it right now. SmackDown, 10 times was a damn near perfect. Was a damn near perfect show, especially on how they had to build for Survivor Series. This is one thing you can definitely say about it. It was a crammed show. They had to put so much in.
No, yes,
just because they had to make up time because hey, they only have 2 weeks to build for Survivor Series. So here it's like, here we go. Here we now are announcing the teams. The matches are already announced. The matches are announced. Everything else we got to build for Survivor Series. And when it came to that, SmackDown did the better job. And then you look at Raw. Oh man, Raw was a complete and utter mess.
I honestly don't remember much else about Raw other than
the biggest highlight.
I believe Alexa Bliss came out in a suit at some point.
That happened at the beginning of the show. Both Baron Corbin and Alexa Bliss were named captains of their teams, but yet they're both not wrestling. I mean, Alexa.
What sense does that make?
Alexa, you can understand why she's not wrestling because she's still concussed. She's still on the injured list. Baron, I don't know. I honestly have no idea why.
It was a big bald turd.
And then you have Kurt coming in, adding more unnecessary dialogue, try and build. So Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin, winner is team captain. Well, that build was utterly pointless because the whole build of Raw was Braun Strowman trying to murder Baron Corbin. All right. So yeah, that happened.
Mm-hmm. That was my reaction while watching the show, making various pain faces.
So yeah, the whole show is Braun Strowman trying to build Baron Corbin. Kill Baron Corbin. The whole story is Braun Strowman trying to kill Baron Corbin, as like we said, downgrade from being the top face of the company. And the best way to describe this show is heel heat. Mm-hmm. You have the Riot Squad breaking, Ruby Riot breaking Jimmy Neidhart's glasses to get sympathy for Natalya, and all the crowd can do is count the Riot Squad 10 because the match never officially ended. Yeah, the crowd didn't give a shit.
It just seemed like everything just like screeched to a stop.
Mm-hmm. And you have Seth Rollins having to defend the tag team championship against the newly crowned tag team champions, Authors of Pain, or AOP. Aup. And my immediate response is, oh wow, AOP is the tag team champions. In a tag team division that really doesn't exist on Monday Night Raw. At least no legit threats. You have the B team, which AOP already destroyed. You have Chad Gable and Bobby Roode, again, AOP destroyed. You have the Ascension, copy paste, and then you have Heath Slater and Rhino. That's your Raw tag team division. Who's gonna stand up to AOP? Who's a legit threat that you can have for these two?
I think of nothing.
And that's the problem. And then, to answer our question from last week, this whole thing was just to have another Nia Jax heel turn and team up with Tamina and completely destroy Ember Moon. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on. All that matters is Nia Jax and Tamina are a tag team.
Okay.
Cricket, 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 cricket. Oh, pin drop. You could probably hear that because the crowd didn't give a shit. And then Bobby Lashley, with help of Leo Rush, actually defeating Finn Balor. And then Drew McIntyre completely destroying Kurt Angle, which, to be fair, you got to give us that one because Drew McIntyre is basically being pushed beyond. Finally, my opinion.
He's ready. He's way more ready than he was.
And then once Raw really ended, I just stopped and think. Okay, with Roman Reigns gone, they're really like looking at the baby faces. You don't really have much as like someone who's being pushed right and being that top spot. The best you have is Seth Rollins, and he just got destroyed by AOP, and then Dean Ambrose comes in and basically destroys the remaining pieces of that, which I'm gonna be fair. That's the most interesting thing going on with Raw right now. The intrigue of Dean Ambrose coming out is like, you want to know why I turned? You want to know why I did it? Well, I'm not saying it. I'm just gonna keep beating the shit out of you. Okay, that builds intrigue, but if Seth is your top babyface, he just got completely annihilated. And then you look at the rest of the top faces of Raw. Braun downgraded to Baron Corbin. You get Finn Balor, who is basically the punching bag for everybody now, which is the saddest thing in the world. And then you got Elias, who is great on the microphone, knows how to get the crowd going, but is not a good wrestler. I love Elias, but he's terrible in the ring. His matches are boring. And his biggest thing that he had in the ring was when he was a heel and did the sleeper holds. And now he's the one who's having to get the sleeper holds done on him. And he doesn't have the charisma in the ring that he does on the mic.
However, you're not wrong. However, when it comes to Elias, as soon as he comes on my TV, I will turn and stop and watch even if his matches are far from great, I will still watch an Elias match. An Elias match.
Where are we?
I don't know. Either way, I'm still invested enough in Elias that when I'm invested in someone, I can let their flaws slide. Like, I've seen a lot of people give Alexa Bliss flack for her just doing, not doing a lot in the ring. And while that is technically true, I am still entertained by Alexa Bliss enough that I am willing to let that slide. And Elias, to me, is still in that same category. I
give Alexa Bliss a lot more credit. I actually think she's very good in the ring.
Yeah,
I think she's great in the ring. And, of course, she's great on the mic. She actually is. She is well deserved of the spot she's in. Plus, she's beautiful. Mm-hmm. I had to add that in because, hello, nurse. But when I'm trying to look at the top, when you're trying to build stars for Raw, when you have the stars for Raw, at least the top faces, the ones that you want the crowd to be invested in, they're doing kind of a terrible job at putting them in that position. Mm. And hopefully there will be more build on that one for weeks to come, especially now that they have no choice but to put someone in in that Roman Reigns position. Hopefully multiple people in that Roman Reigns position.
If they're smart, please.
In my opinion, it should be, in this order, Seth, Finn, and Braun. Those should be your top 3 faces that you basically should be pushing to be your top stars on the brand.
I would agree with you, except I would switch the order because I personally am sort of tired of Seth Rollins being a top guy. Since as far as I'm concerned, he's already there. Spend some time building up the other two because I feel like they need it a lot more than Seth Rollins does.
And now the big story is going with, since the Intercontinental title is back to being the top title on Raw, it's Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins that they're planning for after Survivor Series.
Which is going to be fun.
It'll be fun.
It'll be fresh. It'll inject new life into not just the Intercontinental title, but Raw as a brand as well. And again, it's going to be the workhorse title. These are the new workhorses, and it's going to build a whole new... It's going to take Drew McIntyre to that whole new level that everyone seems to want to be at. So, yeah.
And then you look at SmackDown, which, like I said, many weeks build, all pushed on one show because of the time they were given. They were the perfect... Everything about this show was damn near perfect. With the builds of now Miz and Daniel Bryan having to be co-captains, even to having these backstage segments which they're actually agreeing on stuff and then they're smiling, looking at each other, smiling. This is weird. I actually am loving this. And then you see Miz trying to do a selfie and Daniel Bryan pops in and be the photo bomber. It's like
they have great chemistry.
They really do have great chemistry, and I hope they actually build more on this one. And it actually builds drama with the main event, with Jeff Hardy and Samoa Joe fighting each other for that last spot, and with Samoa Joe winning, having the history from last week with Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe, and Daniel Bryan being pushed to the point where he's snapping. You see the drama building in the SmackDown team. At least the difference is you actually have a full SmackDown team. Raw only has 3 positions filled. They still need 2 spots to fill. When you have the builds for the Tag Team Survivor Series tournament, you just they need their teams announced, but their match was New Day versus the Usos to be the team captains, and that match was damn awesome. Which is Usos and New Day. You know their matches are awesome, and they were given time, unlike when they had the New Day bar match at Crown Jewel. And now we have the bar versus AOP at Survivor Series. I didn't know. I actually kind of want to see that.
I want to see it too. I want to see the bar versus Alp.
I kind of hope this leads to, I wouldn't say a face turn, but just the kind of like Becky Lynch level for the bar, where they're not bad guys, but they're not good guys either.
They are the guys.
They are the guys. Becky Lynch
Speaking of Becky Lynch, this was the highlight of SmackDown.
Oh, this was the highlight of SmackDown for me too. I loved the hell out of this promo.
Becky.
And,
that was fun. I love Nikki Cross so much.
I'm just right now talking about Becky Lynch's promo to Ronda Rousey at the beginning, where she basically took what Ronda said on Raw, which is something we didn't bring up on our Raw talk. I liked Ronda Rousey's promo too, and how she calls herself the baddest bitch in the world. And I like Becky's retort, where it's like, yeah, you may be the baddest bitch, but at the end of Survivor Series, I'm gonna make you mine. I was like, oh, seriously, is there anything Becky can't do? She's awesome. She is just so, oh my God, she's so goddamn cool. And then she's like, I'm having so much, I'm calling an open challenge. And who come? At first, I actually forgot about Sanity's theme song. I'm like, who the hell is this? I'm like,
I was like, yes.
I had a brain fart. I'm like, wait, whose theme song is this? And then Sanity, I'm like, oh my God, it's Nikki Cross. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And of course, my immediate response is, wow, they're in Manchester for SmackDown. This is the perfect crowd to hopefully.
It all makes sense.
There is a question on whether or not this is actually an official call-up for Nikki Cross, or is this just a one-time appearance? I'm hoping it's a call-up.
I'm actually hoping it's a one-time appearance for no other reason than to refresh the crowd for when they want to do this match again. Because these two can absolutely turn this whole thing into an extended feud.
Mm. And like I said, Manchester crowd is the perfect crowd for Nikki Cross to at least appear on. Because if they did this in some mainstream audience in the States, who most likely don't watch NXT as frequently as the most of the Manchester crowd, they wouldn't get a big as much as a response for Nikki Cross as they got in this show. And Nikki looked strong in this one, even though she lost. Mm-hmm. And it was another great match.
Mm-hmm. Which is really making me hope that whatever they do, I hope it preserves the credibility of this kind of matchup. Because I enjoyed this thoroughly, and I absolutely want to see more.
As do I.
So any other final thoughts on SmackDown?
Rey Mysterio and Andrade Cien Almas. Another great match. Like I said, all the matches were great. All the segments were great. All the in-ring promos, the backstage promos, the matches, everything was just so perfect on this show. And the only real criticism I have is just they have to pack so much. This is for Raw and SmackDown. They had to pack so much because they had their time completely wasted in building up this stupid wasted time event in Crown Jewel. It makes the episode come full circle. Crown Jewel was just nothing more than a complete wasted time. And that's what actually made me more angry about this week than anything. More than just the pay-per-view actually in the end leaving me angry. It's just the fact that it was all completely pointless and it just halted time that you could have built for a great card that you already have for Survivor Series.
Yeah, thankfully there are absolutely plenty of pieces to make a great Survivor Series this year. And I'm absolutely looking forward to finally, now that we're free from everything else, the Go Home show next week where we finally put our monies and our thoughts and our titles where our mouths are, and we can finally do our Survivor Series prediction show. But until that, now you've heard from us. Now we're turning it over to you, our listening and viewing audience. Let us know what you think. What were your reactions to Crown Jewel? What did you think of this week's Raw and SmackDown? Who is going to be the man or men or ladies, whatever, going forward? We want to hear from you. So, of course, let us know any number of places all across the internet. If you're on Facebook, give us a like on our page, The Scholars of Wrestling Show. If you're joining us on YouTube, thumbs ups, likes, subscribes, all that good stuff. You know what to do. And, of course, if you want more fun, you can join us on a more personal level on Twitter, starting with our main page at ScholarsOW for all the latest episode uploads. If you want to join the discussion and follow along with the live tweets on all the major shows, you can follow us on our regular Twitter accounts. You can follow Scholar Brian at Atomic Beanpole, who will be joining us next week. Champ, where can they reach you?
You can reach me at the Avataric.
And you can reach me at I'm Robbie Rage. Join us the conversation. Join us for all the fun. It's always a good time, guaranteed, and except for when it's not. But in the meantime, you know who we are. We are the Scholars of Wrestling, and you have just been schooled.
You're welcome.
See you all for the prediction show next week.